I need to turn your attention over here.
March 12th and May 2nd.
Is it March 12th?
Yes.
Is it, or turning it online?
Turnitin.com. Okay. Now, if you are, depending on how you're going to present, okay, you would turn in whatever you turn in. Like if you're doing do a presentation, you have PowerPoint, you would turn it in. Okay. That would come email or Canvas. Okay. The book reviews, if you write a book review, will be turnitin.com. If you're doing a double journal entry, you turn that in as person on paper. I mean, if you typed it, you could turn it in online in an email. Okay. All right. So the Passion Project, which while I was gone, you guys got the video to play over the 100 years of American history, and hopefully you started pulling some ideas about what you might want to read about. Yes, that's where we're at this point. Okay. The other part of that was to start narrowing that down and figuring out some titles that you might read, and then getting that title approved by me of what you're going to read. Okay. Again, 20th century, 21st century American history, fiction, historical fiction, or nonfiction. Okay, something you're interested in. And how you present that be up to you. Okay, you can write a book review if you want, do double journal entry, you can do a presentation, you want to write a skit, perform it, however you want to do it, however you want to present. But the presentation, guys, is like a book review. You're analyzing the book and the author. It's not a book report. I don't want a book report. I don't want a summary of the book. I want your opinion of the book. Okay? And that's what you will be presenting. Okay? Whether it's in a Prezi, a PowerPoint, or what have you. Okay? So you got to start narrowing that down. Okay? You've got plenty of time. I'm giving you guys good latitude here. Okay? And then the interview is May 2nd. Okay? Now, if you're not going to interview someone, then you need to pick a battle, 20th century American, or not, yeah, it's going to be 20th century American history, a battle, and you're going to write a research paper on that and do a presentation on it. Okay, so if you're thinking I'm not going to do the interview, Mr. Ebright, send me an email or something like that, and I will give you a list of battles to choose from. And your project would be due when we get to that battle in class. Okay, we're not to World War II yet. Okay, the next chapter after we finish this, we've got the New Deal and the Great Depression. Okay, that'll be in the next chapter. We'll test over module 17 and 18. Module 19 will be FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, and the New Deal. Okay, module 20A will be the lead up to World War II, up to Pearl Harbor. And then 20B will be from Pearl Harbor to the end of the war. And then we'll do module 21A and B, which is post World War II. Okay? So whatever battle you choose, your project's due when I get to that in class. So if you do World War II battle, that's going to come sooner rather than later. If you do a Vietnam War battle instead of an interview, that will be like the last week of school. Okay? Your finals are on the 12th. Okay, I've only got one history class, so that's going to be 10 days to grade those interviews. Okay, so I pushed those back as late as I could for you. All right? And for my two timers, okay, you guys got good gaps between each one. Good? Good? Okay. Yes.
Explain what's going on. I just only know that
Well, they haven't yet.
They haven't yet,
No.
but they have the military.
Now, in 2008, 2009, when Obama was president, this green right here is Ukraine. Okay? There's a peninsula to the south of it called Crimea. Russia took that back in 2009. What did Obama do? Nothing. Okay. What is Biden going to do? So right now, Russians have 100,000 troops on the Ukrainian border. They're in February, I think it's 8 through 10. They're supposed to do joint military exercises with Belarus. So they're an ally with Russia, Belarus. And so Russia will be sending troops right now into Belarus for those military exercises with the Belarusian government. Okay, they're military. So you will have Russian troops on two sides of Ukraine. Capital is Kiev right here. So between Belarus and Kiev, it's a very, very short distance. Okay. Now, if you look back at Russian history, like the birth of Russia as a nation, it began in Kiev, which is in the Ukraine. Okay. Now, when the Russian Revolution happened in 1917, and the Soviet Union began, you see this here, okay? So all of this area was under the control of the Soviet Union. Okay, and that goes all the way out. This is actually after World War II. Okay, so you can see they have half of Poland. So this is actually, what is this date on this? This is 1917 to 41. Okay, so that's when they invaded here. And so they didn't control Poland after World War I. They controlled Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, okay, and then all of these Kazakhstans and all the stands down here, including down here, there's a country called Georgia. Okay, when the Soviet Union collapsed, all those countries broke away, including the Ukraine. As we grew, as the Cold War began after World War II, okay, we tried to stop the spread of communism. So we went to war in Korea, we went to war in Vietnam, okay? And then when the Russians invaded Afghanistan in '79, we sent help to Afghanistan to fight against the Russians, just like they sent help to fight against us in Korea and Vietnam. That's the Cold War turned hot 3 times, okay? Now, when they dissolved and they broke apart, you get these new countries, okay? And Russia wants to retain influence over these countries. We created NATO at the end of World War II as a defense against the Soviet Union. And as we go through the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, more and more countries in Eastern Europe came under our protection in NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Okay, it's a military alliance. If there's an attack on any of these nations, like Poland or Hungary, it's an attack on all of the nations. So when we were attacked on 9/11, and that attack originated in Afghanistan, every country in NATO sent troops to Afghanistan, including Luxembourg, including Belgium, France. They all sent troops. Canada, to Afghanistan. Okay? As we move into the 2000s, Ukraine wanted to go into NATO and be under our umbrella. And Russia does not want that. So what Putin wants out of this whole thing is that Ukraine never becomes part of NATO, never joins the European Union. And as Ukrainian elected officials moved closer and closer to Europe, throughout the late 90s and the 2000s, Russia started to intervene. Okay? Remember, Russia does not have a warm water port in the wintertime. This is why they took back the Crimea in 2009. They sent troops there. We didn't do anything. The Ukrainians didn't do anything. They surprised them. Okay? There's no surprise here. The whole world is watching this, yes? Okay, what are we gonna do? What is President Biden gonna do? There are a few people in this country that want to send troops there. We're already moving an aircraft carrier into the Mediterranean. That happened yesterday. Napoleon tried this. Hitler tried this. How did it turn out for them? Do we want to send Americans over to the Ukraine to fight? Huh?
Not invading Russia.
No. They will take it as an invasion. But they have 100,000 men. They have thousands of tanks. Now, we can do a lot from the air. We can do a lot. So can Russia. Okay? Listen. We're going to learn a lot about appeasement and stuff leading up to World War II here. Okay? And look, Russia only fears strength. If you show Russia weakness, they will seize on it. Okay? This is what Reagan did in the 80s, guys. Reagan said peace through strength. That we are going to build a military so strong, so powerful, an arsenal so big that Russia is afraid to mess with us. And we did that. And the Russians tried to keep up with us. They tried to build all the same stuff we were building and keep pace with us. And it bankrupted their system. Because communism doesn't function like capitalism. Okay? It just doesn't. They couldn't keep pace. And we won the Cold War. Communism collapsed under its own weight in Russia. Okay? Now, I don't have a problem sending weapons to the Ukrainians to help defend themselves. We're doing that. Okay? Britain's sending weapons as well. As far as sending troops here, getting ourselves embroiled in a major war with Russia,
You say that right.
yeah, Joe?
Are they sending military advisors there like they did?
I'm not sure if we have any military personnel there. I'm sure, we have to train them how to use the weapons that we're sending. The British are sending weapons as well. Now, mostly what we're selling, giving them is like javelins, which are tank busters. So yeah, there's probably some military involvement as far as training, but I think it's probably pretty limited. U.S. is pulling out embassy personnel as we speak in Kiev. He's bringing the Americans home. The British, the Germans, and the French are not. In fact, Germans, the French, and the British are meeting with the Russians. Now, President Biden's Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, has been meeting with his counterpart, the Soviet foreign minister. Okay? And so those discussions, what can we do to punish Russia if they invade? Economically, we can punish them. Okay, we can put on what are called sanctions, economic sanctions. If you get the world united behind you, now remember, I don't know if you know this, but the United Nations, and we haven't talked about this because you guys took government, okay? There are 5 UN Security Council, okay? 5 US, Great Britain, France, I don't know why, China, and Russia, okay? All of these 5 have veto power. So as far as getting the United Nations to put economic sanctions on Russia, Russia can veto it that themselves. Okay, so you're not going to be able to use the United Nations here. Okay, so it's going to have to be outrage from the rest of the world minus China, Iran, and Russia. Yes.
And the,
No. That's the only reason why we joined. Every nation in the United Nations can agree to something, and the United States can veto it.
I love the security.
Johnson, it has no backbone. It has no mandate to rule or govern over us. Does anything in the Constitution say anything about sovereignty of the United States going to the United Nations? Do we get to elect those people? What say do they have over us unless we give them a say? So if the United States votes with the United Nations and the United Nations agrees and we agree, then the United States can be affected by those policies, but only then. If we don't agree to it, we're not affected by it. So Biden's message at his press conference was mixed. You understand? It wasn't clear. So like right away, they're having to clean up what he said. Like he mentioned a small incursion into Ukraine would be different than an invasion. Well, wait a second. A small incursion, they have rebels in the Ukraine right now, the Russians do. And if they can get to them and give them the Russian weapons they want, that small incursion can turn into a big freaking deal. You follow me? So his administrations have to clean up he just needs to be clear. Look, if you guys invade, we are going to hit you with the hardest economic sanctions known to man. Like what we do to North Korea. Like nobody trades with North Korea, except for China. That's it. The world has isolated the country. Can we do that to Russia? Yes, except that Europe gets a lot of its oil from Russia. So, all right, can we supply Europe with oil? Can other people help do that? And then really isolate Russia and hurt their economy to the point like, okay, we're pulling out of the Ukraine. You see what I mean? That's what you can do short of war. Does that help, Gabby? But you got to be clear and you got to be strong. Because if you're weak, do you know why this is happening? Did this happen under Trump? No. Why? Dude, under Obama, they sent Humvees and blankets to the Ukraine. Under Trump, they sent javelins. They sent lethal weapons to the Ukraine. Okay? And look, when we pulled out of Afghanistan the way we did, what did it make us look like? Like our tail between our legs, guys. We left $80 billion of military equipment there that fell into the hands of the Taliban in 2 weeks. That sends the wrong message, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. Now, I'm not saying we had to stay in Afghanistan for another 20 years. But it doesn't look good. The optics are bad. It makes us look weak. And what is Russia doing? And if things heat up over here and we get distracted over here, start sending troops over here, you know what China's going to do, right? They're going to seize on that opportunity to try to take back Taiwan. The president, and I want President Biden to succeed here, trust me. This isn't political. Biden needs to step up, be strong about it, and just say the right things. He's got people in his administration that know what to say. If he doesn't, he knows who he can call. And I'm not saying call Donald Trump. I'm saying call Dick Cheney. Call George W. Bush. Call somebody, just talk to some people and say, look, you guys were around when all this stuff was going on. What do you think we should do? What should we say? How do you best deal with this and be successful with it? you know, I don't support going to war over there. You know, it's just it's too much, man. The Russians, it's their soil. It's right there. And we have to come across the planet to do this, and we're not really ready to do it. And this would be conventional war. You understand? This would be conventional. It would not be an atomic war or a nuclear war. Okay? So you're talking about you need a lot of tanks, you need a lot of armor, you need a lot of artillery, okay? And you need a lot of men. You guys remember? Well, we haven't talked about this, okay? Like the Battle of the Bulge, guys. In World War II, you know, it's brutal warfare. The weapons are better than they've ever been. It's not, we don't want to see war like this. So if we can prevent it, and dude, if we got to say, look, Ukraine's not going to be part of NATO. I don't know. Is that appeasement? Giving in? Well, if Ukraine can remain autonomous and control their own destiny, I don't know. It's a tough one. Tough one. Gabby? 20 minutes on that.
I appreciate it.
Stocks. Yeah, let's talk about money. All right. So, guys, the other day I was talking about public companies and private companies, privately owned and then publicly traded. Okay. So you and I are allowed to own stock in these companies that are publicly traded. Okay. Now, let's take a company that a lot of you guys are familiar with, and that's Boeing, right? Boeing makes airplanes, okay? They have issued millions of shares of stock. And if you have enough money, let's say Boeing is selling for $50 per share of stock, okay? If you have enough money, you can go to a broker like an Edward Jones or a Charles Schwab. You guys know Edward Jones. They're like on every street corner, okay? Those are stockbrokers. You go in there and say, hey, Johnny, I want to buy some Boeing stock. He can do that for you. He can buy that for you. Now, there are apps that you can get on your phone and you can set up accounts. You can do this yourself, okay? Or you can go to a broker that can give you good advice on investing, okay? Now, let's just say we're going to use an app. We're going to buy some Boeing share because Boeing just announced a big sale of aircraft, 737s, to Frontier Airlines. I don't know if you heard about this, but that's good news. That means the people that work at Spirit that build fuselages for the 737 are going to have lots of time to build lots of planes for over the next few years. It's going to keep them busy. That's good for our economy right here in Wichita, Kansas. Yes? So if Boeing makes a big sale, okay, let's buy some of this. Let's say we got $1,000. Okay, I got $1,000. I'm going to buy how many shares of Boeing? 200?
Yeah.
20. 20 shares.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. So I got 20 shares at $50 a piece worth $1,000. Okay. Now, Boeing announces the sale. Okay. And what happens to the value of the company? It goes up. So now Boeing is selling for $55 a share. I have 20 shares. How much money did I just make? I'm plus $100. Did I have to wake up and get out of bed to make that money? Nope. I did that while I was laying in bed. Okay? That's called putting your money to work for you. Yes? Well, if you sell it,
Like you sell it.
you've made the $100. Except you got to pay taxes on that, and that's called capital gains taxes, and that's going to cost you 27%. So you didn't really make 100.
Made 63.
You made $63.
33. Yeah.
Now, yeah, this is what they tell you when you go invest. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, because next thing you know, the 737 MAX is flying over the Atlantic and it crashes and 300 people die. And then next week, another one crashes. And they ground all the 737 MAXs on the planet. That just happened, right? And it was bad for business. So what happens to your $100 profit here? So you're like, you hear about this crash of this plane, you're like, you call your broker, and you're like, hey, I want to sell my Boeing stock. It was trading at 55. Now you tell your guy, I want to sell it for 55, and he's trying to sell it. And that's what these people on the floor do at the New York Stock Exchange. They work for the brokers, and they're trying to sell their stock to other brokers. Okay, and say, I got 100 shares of Boeing, 55, 54, anybody buying? Anybody buying? 54, 53, anybody buying? No, nobody's buying at 53. Okay, we'll go to 50 and we'll cut our losses, yeah? But nobody's buying at 50. Because they just grounded all these planes. We don't know how long it is before they take off again. And we don't know if people will even buy these planes after they come back. After they fix them. Which was an engineering problem. Okay, a computer problem. Not an aeronautical problem. Okay. So let's say you sell your shares for $40 a share. You just lost $100. Well, actually, you were up 100. Now you're down $200. That's why you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Okay? Listen, the value of a stock is only worth what somebody else is willing to pay you for it. You understand? If nobody's willing to buy that stock from you, what is it worth? Worth nothing. It's a piece of paper. This is how how does the stock market crash? Everybody's selling and nobody's buying. Now, so to avoid putting all our eggs in one basket, what can we do? We can buy what are called mutual funds. Okay, so in order to buy a mutual fund, guys, you usually need about $2,000 or $2,500. Okay, now these mutual funds are in different sectors. So you can, guys, when you start learning more about this, you find out you've got like banking stocks, you know, which is growth oriented. Okay, you've got your blue chip stocks, which are your big established companies. You've got your tech sector, you've got precious metals, you've got all different sorts of things you can invest in, okay? But in a mutual fund, you're going to buy a bunch of different stocks with one fund. So, you got Coca-Cola, you got General Motors, you got Pfizer, DER, Pfizer. Okay, you've got Moderna. You heard about their stock recently? It's nosediving. Okay. Well, because like Denmark and some others countries have stopped using it because of the high cases of heart inflammation. Okay. Let's go with Microsoft. General Electric. Okay. Now, okay, so 6% of my $2,000 here, 6% here, 5% here, 5% here, 5% here, okay, 4% here. Let's throw in Walmart. Let's throw in Walgreens. Okay, 4%, 4%.
Tesla.
Tesla, 3%. Okay, now, so if Tesla has a good year, but Moderna has a bad year, they tend to balance each other out. Follow me? McDonald's has a bad year, but Coca-Cola has a good year. It balances out. Okay? And so what you're hoping to get in a mutual fund is following the market as a whole. Okay, if we come over here, guys, I've got a couple of charts up here. This is the New York Stock Exchange in 1934. This is the New York Stock Exchange in 2015. So over its history, if you invested in it, you would get a return of about 10 to 12% on your money. Now, how many guys have a savings account? What kind of return on your money you get on that? Less than 1%? Now, they're starting to come up. Guys, you understand? You're going to start getting more money because inflation, the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates. And so the banks will begin to pay you more for what you are loaning them. Not much, but you'll start to see a little bit more. So if you start looking at bonds, buying bonds instead of stocks, okay, bond yields will probably start coming up with interest rates coming up. Okay, now bonds, you never get big returns. But if you get in the right bonds, you can get a 4, 5, 6% interest. Okay, now when you go to a financial advisor and you start planning for retirement, the number they're going to use typically is 6% return on your money. If you get more than that, you're doing great, right? So if you look at the year 2019 and you look at the year 2021, guys, the market went up way more than 10%. Okay, people are getting really good return on their money. Now, the last week, freaking market's taking a nosedive. Okay, inflation, slowdown. Okay, jobs numbers that came back were lower than expected. You start looking at profits in businesses and so forth, and and part of that's just this Omicron thing, right? Which what we're starting to see with Omicron, guys, is like in California, they've hit their peak. So numbers are starting to drop in California as far as COVID cases. Okay, in different parts of the country will be at different times, we'll see a slowdown. Okay, but when you look at the supply chain issues with people being missing work, right? Just like all the teachers that were gone 2 weeks ago, like when I was gone, right? You have a lot of people missing work. So you see a slowdown in production, and which means you have shortages on the shelves, which means you have higher prices and so forth. You follow me? So hopefully, as Omicron dies down, the economy will start to pick back up, and so will the market. Okay? The economy is not in horrible shape. Omicron's doing a number on us right now. Okay? The first year under the Biden administration, we have seen economic growth. We've also seen inflation, which is not good. I mean, at that rate, you do want some inflation. You want a very slow rate of inflation. That's a good thing. So I'll get to. I'll explain that. Okay, but the economy's not in terrible shape. Okay, but we do have some issues with it. All right, so when you're betting here, this is legalized gambling. You're betting on the U.S. economy. You understand? Now, listen, guys. It's hard to stack your money away in a savings account and use that for retirement. You need to grow your money. You understand? And the earlier you start doing that, guys, all of you are going to college now. Yes? Okay. What are you going to major in? Anybody doing like gender studies or something like that?
Yes. Russian literature.
There's a good one. What can you do with a degree in Russian literature?
Teach the class.
Teach it. Right? Now, do professors make big money teaching that? Not really. Professors don't get rich. Teachers don't get rich. Cops don't get rich. Soldiers don't get rich. You want to be rich?
Yeah.
Is that a goal? Do you want to not have to worry about money? Especially when you can't work anymore? You want to retire early? This is what you do. You invest. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the stock market. Some people invest in real estate. Some people flip houses. Some people buy rentals and use that as investment income. You invest money, you buy a duplex, you got two families living in your duplex, you pay off the mortgage on that duplex, and everything is profit other than the property taxes and maintenance on the duplex. Forever. Okay, there's lots of places you can put your money where you can grow your assets. Okay, but the savings account, ladies and gentlemen, isn't going to get it done. Social Security is not going to cover you for a comfortable retirement. Now, here's the thing about compound interest. If you start when you're 22, when you graduate from college and you get that first good job, and you invest at least this much money a year on top of what you get in a 401k, because a lot of the jobs you guys will get when you get out, you'll have a 401k, which they're going to be doing the exact same thing, which is buying mutual funds. You get to choose. Like, I have 4 options with the diocese. You got large cap, which is big stocks like this, small cap, small companies, emerging companies, international stocks, and bonds. As we get 4 choices here, the diocese. My 401k, just to give you an indication, this is my 23rd year teaching here. I fully funded it every year. I put in 6% of my paycheck into 401k. Bishop Carroll, the diocese, matches up to 5% of that. So it's free money. So if they offer you 401k, do it. I know your paycheck will be a little bit smaller, but it's free money. Okay? So you take that 5%, it goes into mutual funds with the 6% that you're putting in. And after 23 years in the diocese, I have about $150,000 in my 401k. Now, am I going to retire on $150,000? No. So you got to do it on your own outside of this. Do you understand? So take another $2,000 or more and invest it with Charles Schwab and Edward Jones. And what you're going to buy is called a Roth IRA. Okay? It's the first thing you're going to invest in. And that'll be in a mutual fund somewhere. Okay? That your investment advisor will help you pick out. Here's the thing. This money goes from your paycheck into the Roth IRA. And when you get that money out at 62, it's tax free. You don't pay any capital gains on it. It's tax freaking free. Do you understand?
Yes.
That's huge. Because you're talking about if you put in $2,000 a month, a year, into a Roth IRA, after 40 years of that, you will have close to $1 million if the market does what it's done in the past. $1 million if you start at 22. If you wait till you're 30, you're going to have to put in more than $2,000 a year. You understand? So if you do this right with your 401k, you do this right with your Roth IRA, now you can put in up to, I think it's up to $6,000 a year now in a Roth IRA. Now, if you make too much money, like my wife, she can't put any money in a Roth IRA. The government says she makes too much money. Now, she has one that she, put in before she started making too much money. So I try and fully fund my Roth every year. which is closer to like $6,000 a year. Okay? They did this so people would invest and save for the future, so that people were not reliant on Social Security for their subsistence. You want to live on $1,300 a month when you're retired? You don't want to live on that. You want to be able to draw off of this. Okay? And you'll be in good shape. All right? Even if you wait a little bit. Now, like hopefully my Roth IRA or my 401k that I have through my employer, hopefully by the time I retire, it'll be closer to, $250,000, and that'll be good. I can, use that to live off when I'm no longer working and so forth. Okay. Now, my wife and I do both the Roth and then there's traditional IRAs as well. Now, you got to pay taxes on those. Okay. But you have limits, on these Roths. So you can do extra in these other IRAs. Okay. When you're young, do it. Do it. You will thank yourself later. Okay. There may be some lean years for you guys. Everybody's different. Okay. There may be some lean years where you can't do it, but get started early. Okay. And watch that money grow over time. You can't touch it. Now you can take money out of an IRA, but you pay taxes and you pay penalties when you take it out early. Okay, so this stuff's just like Social Security, sticking it away for the future. Okay, and you'll thank yourself so much when you're old. Okay, I've tried to do this. My wife has been very good about this. She learned it from her parents. Okay, look, when my dad died, he didn't have any of this stuff. Okay, all my dad had was debt. Now, he did have a business that was making money when he died, and that business is still making money. Okay? So he always knew that he was going to have that money coming in from the business, so he lived life and just didn't care. Okay? Like the year before he died, he bought a brand new, like $50,000 Lincoln Continental. Like, Dad, what are you doing? Well, the radio broke in the other one. So we bought a new one. You know what I mean? And just debt. We're still paying off his debt. Okay? Had a $100,000 life insurance policy between 3 kids. We each got $33,000. I bought a used pickup truck. This was, when they first started coming out with the big screen TVs. Bought a 55-inch big screen TV. Okay. Yeah. And my dad would approve. He loved watching TV, watching ball games and stuff on TV. So he would have approved. Yeah, so I mean, it's just like, it's astounding how much money you guys can make doing this. Okay, but you got to start young. Okay. So how does the stock market crash? Everybody's selling. Nobody's buying. Okay, and that's, I guess you guys are packing up. Are we out of time?
Yeah.
All right. Did you learn something today?
Yes.
Okay. Roth IRA. Roth IRA. Okay. Hey, those of you that work now, you could open one right now. You might need about $2,000, and you might be using that money for college or something else. But if you can afford to stack a little away and invest it,
You can open up when you're 14. Yeah, you can. Sam's at that. It was invested back in like 8 years.
okay. Yeah. I think with an Edward Jones or something like that, you need about $2,000, but you might be able to do it on your
I
own.
think Sam did it with like E-Trade.
Same books or something.